starting with Joy Reid in for Rachel. Good evening, Joy.
Good evening, Chris. And by the way, you didn't get to go to your own party, but congratulations on the Emmy win.
Thank you very much. Yes! Thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
The crowd went wild. Thank you very much.
Have a
great night. All right. Thank you, Chris. And thanks to you at home for joining in this hour. Rachel has a night off, but she will be back tomorrow. She will be back tomorrow, I promise. And now, if you were keeping notes on the twists and turns in the ongoing story of the Supreme Court nomination of Brett Kavanaugh, your best bet would have been to take those notes in pencil, because the story has changed directions multiple times since the dramatic testimony of Christine Blasey Ford, who accuses Kavanaugh of sexually assaulting her when they were in high school, and the angry, confrontational testimony of Kavanaugh himself. And that was just this past Thursday. There's been a ton of breaking news since then, including today, even just in the last couple of hours. And we have a lot to get to regarding the state of play as it stands tonight. But first, let's briefly recap the whiplash that we've gone through over the past few days. On Friday, at the moment that the Senate Judiciary Committee was expected to vote quickly along party lines to advance Kavanaugh's nomination, the process was suddenly thrown into disarray when Republican Senator Jeff Flake made an unexpected last-minute deal with the committee Democrats to secure a one-week delay in the full Senate vote, during which the FBI would look into Dr. Ford's allegations and possibly into other allegations, too. It was not really clear at the time. Later that day, we learned that the White House had indeed ordered the FBI. But on Saturday, NBC News was first to report that the White House had sharply limited the scope of the FBI's investigation, telling the FBI it could investigate Christine Blasey Ford's claims and those of Deborah Ramirez, who has publicly accused Brett Kavanaugh of shoving his genitalia in her face at a party when they were both college students at Yale. But not the claims from Julie Swetnick, who has accused Kavanaugh of engaging in sexual misconduct at parties when he was in high school, a high school student in the 1980s. The New York Times reported that day that the White House was only allowing the FBI to interview 4 people: Mark Judge, Kavanaugh's friend, whom Dr. Ford claims was an accomplice in the alleged assault, 2 other people whom she claims were at the gathering where the assault allegedly occurred, and Deborah Ramirez, the Yale accuser. On Saturday night, Donald Trump tweeted that NBC was wrong. Quote, "Actually, I want the FBI to interview whomever they deem appropriate at their discretion. Please correct your reporting!" But on Sunday, NBC reported that despite those comments, the limits to the FBI's investigation remained unchanged, and that the FBI had received no new instructions from the White House. Meanwhile, the New Yorker's Ronan Farrow and Jane Mayer, who broke the story of Deborah Ramirez's allegation, were reporting yesterday that several potential witnesses were attempting to contact the FBI to pass on what they thought might be useful information, but were having no luck. For instance, one Yale classmate attempting to corroborate Ramirez's claim, quote, had hoped to convey this to the FBI, but when he reached out to a bureau official in Washington, D.C., he was told to contact the FBI field office nearest his home. When he tried that, he was referred to a recording. After several attempts to reach a live person at the field office, he finally reached an official who said he had no idea what he was talking about. At this point, he went back to the official at the FBI's D.C. headquarters, who then referred him to an 800 number tip line. He eventually left a tip through an online portal. Last night, Senate Judiciary Committee ranking Democrat Dianne Feinstein asked the White House and the FBI to hand over whatever directive the White House had given the FBI outlining the scope of the investigation. By this morning, she and 8 of her Democratic colleagues on the committee had signed on to a letter demanding a full investigation and specifically asking that the FBI look into the claims of Julie Swetnick as well. And at a press conference in the Rose Garden this morning, the president seemed to agree.
I think the FBI should do what they have to do to get to the answer.
Just for clarity, will you instruct the White House counsel, Don McGahn, to give the FBI free rein to interview whomever they feel is necessary?
Well, I have so instructed him, and I did it again over the weekend.
So just to be clear, should the FBI interview all 3 of Brett Kavanaugh's accusers?
It wouldn't bother me at all.
And at that point, it still seemed to be this strange case of Donald Trump saying one thing and his White House continuing to instruct the FBI to do something else. Until finally, a couple hours later, The Times reported that a new directive had come down from the White House, walking back the restrictions and telling the FBI to interview anyone necessary for their investigation. Got all that? Now, this would all be confusing enough if everyone involved wasn't racing against an artificial clock that runs out this Friday, the latest the Republicans have agreed to postpone the vote on Kavanaugh's nomination. And by the way, as for that timeline, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell took to the Senate floor today to make it clear that there will be no delay in that timeline, that the Senate will vote on Brett Kavanaugh's nomination by the end of the week, come hell or high water, and also pre-scolding Democrats for what he insists will be a cynical, disingenuous arguments at the end of the week.
So soon, I expect we'll hear that the conclusions of the expert prosecutor who questioned both witnesses at last week's hearing aren't reliable, or that the FBI's investigation was not infinite or endless enough for their liking. Maybe we'll hear the real issue is not these uncorroborated allegations of misconduct after all, but rather the fact that Judge Kavanaugh, now listen to this, drank beer in high school and in college.
Well, now that you mention it, the drinking is, in fact, a major sticking point for a lot of people, and not just Senate Democrats. Several of Kavanaugh's college classmates have come forward to allege that he was a heavy, sloppy drinker in college. And no, the issue is not whether or not Kavanaugh drank a lot in his youth, something that pretty much everyone, including the Senate Democrats, appear willing to forgive. It's that they claim he has repeatedly, blatantly lied about it. Most recently, a Yale classmate of Kavanaugh's named Chad Ludington issued a statement saying that while he has, quote, nothing to contribute about what kind of justice he would be, in recent days, I have become deeply troubled by what has been a blatant mischaracterization by Brett himself of his drinking at Yale. Quote, Brett was a frequent drinker and a heavy drinker. I know because especially in our first 2 years of college, I often drank with him. On many occasions, I heard Brett slur his words and saw him staggering from alcohol consumption, not all of which was beer. When Brett got drunk, he was often belligerent and aggressive. On one of the last occasions I purposely socialized with Brett, I witnessed him respond to a semi-hostile remark, not by diffusing the situation, but by throwing his beer in the man's face and starting a fight that ended with one of our mutual friends in jail. I do not believe that the heavy drinking or even loutish behavior of an 18 or even 21-year-old should condemn a person for the rest of his life. But, quote, I can unequivocally say that denying the possibility that he ever blacked out from drinking and in downplaying the degree and frequency of his drinking, Brett has not told the truth. Chad Ludington ended his statement by saying that he would, quote, take my information to the FBI. And that brings us to the first bit of late-breaking news tonight, something that may give us a bit of a window into the scope of the FBI investigation now that the restrictions have ostensibly been taken off by the White House. That altercation that Mr. Ludington described, in which Brett Kavanaugh allegedly threw a beer at someone and started a fight, well, tonight the New York Times reports that there is indeed a police report documenting that incident and Judge Kavanaugh's involvement. Quote, the incident, which occurred in September 1985 during Mr. Kavanaugh's junior year, resulted in Mr. Kavanaugh and 4 other men being questioned by the New Haven Police Department. Mr. Kavanaugh was not arrested, but the police report stated that a 21-year-old man accused Mr. Kavanaugh of throwing ice on him for some unknown reason. A witness to the fight said that Chris Dudley, a Yale basketball player who is friends with Mr. Kavanaugh, then threw a glass that hit the 21-year-old man in the ear, according to the police report. The report said that the victim was bleeding from the right ear and was later treated at a local hospital. Mr. Dudley denied the allegation, according to the report, but for his part, speaking to the officers, Mr. Kavanaugh did not want to say if he threw the ice or not, the police report said. The report referred to the altercation, which occurred at a bar called Demery's, as an assault. It did not say whether anyone was arrested, and there is no indication that charges were filed. The Times is also reporting tonight that Chad Ludington, who first described this incident, said that he has been in touch with the FBI. And the other thing that's worth noting about this story tonight, Chris Dudley, the Kavanaugh friend and classmate who was accused by a witness of throwing a glass and injuring another bar patron in this fight, an accusation he denies. Chris Dudley is one of two people who issued statements distributed by the White House today, attesting to Brett Kavanaugh's character. In his statement today, Chris Dudley said that he and Kavanaugh, quote, drank in college. I was with Brett frequently in college, whether it be in the gym, in class, or socializing. I never saw Brett black out, not one time. And in all the years I've known him, I have never seen him to be disrespectful or inappropriate with women. I would also like to point out that going out never came before working hard and maintaining our focus on our goals. The person sometimes being described in the press is not the Brett Kavanaugh that I have known as a good friend for 35 years. All of which may be true, even if the two of them were involved in an ill-advised bar fight. But as you can see, new information is coming out fast and furious. So that's one piece of breaking news. And here's another. Earlier this evening, Senator Susan Collins, one of the key Republican votes Kavanaugh needs to be confirmed, joined Democrats in calling for the FBI to investigate not just the claims of Christine Blasey Ford and Deborah Ramirez, but also Julie Swetnick, the woman who alleges that she was at parties in the early 1980s where she saw Brett Kavanaugh engage in sexual misconduct, and who claims that she herself was gang raped at such a party, though she does not accuse Kavanaugh of being one of her attackers. Now, we still don't know at this point whether the FBI is looking into those claims, but Julie Swetnick has given her first sit-down interview to NBC News' Kate Snow, and let's show you a little clip of that.
Can you describe to me what you saw him do?
He was very aggressive, very sloppy drunk, very mean drunk. I saw him go up to girls and paw on them, try to, get a little too handsy, touching them in private parts. I saw him try to shift clothing.
Are there people alive today who would say, I went to those parties with
Yes,
Julie?
there are people that know about those parties.
Now, I do need to tell you that tonight, as of tonight, NBC News has not been able to independently corroborate Swetnick's claims. And when NBC News asked Swetnick's attorney, Michael Avenatti, for any witnesses who could back up Swetnick's account, he provided 4 names of friends who Swetnick says went to parties with her. One of them says that he does not recall anyone named Julie Swetnick. Another of the friends is deceased. NBC News has reached out to the other 2 and has not yet heard back. Swetnick's mother's name was also provided, but she too is deceased. So that's where that part of the story stands tonight. And we have one more bit of new breaking news for you. Another scoop from NBC News. The headline, quote, text messages suggest Kavanaugh wanted to refute accuser's claim before it became public. This is from NBC's Heidi Przybyla and Leanne Caldwell. Quote, in the days leading up to a public allegation that Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh exposed himself to a college classmate, the judge and his team were communicating behind the scenes with friends to refute the claim, according to text messages obtained by NBC News. Carrie Burcham, who was at Yale with both Kavanaugh and his accuser, Deborah Ramirez, has tried to get those messages to the FBI for its newly reopened investigation into the matter, but says she has yet to be contacted by the Bureau. The texts show Kavanaugh may need to be questioned about how far back he anticipated that Ramirez would air allegations against him. Burcham says in her memo that Kavanaugh and or his friends may have initiated an anticipatory narrative as early as July to conceal or discredit Ramirez. Kavanaugh told the Senate Judiciary Committee under oath that the first time he heard about Ramirez's allegation was in the September 23 article in The New Yorker. And joining us now is NBC News political reporter Leanne Caldwell, one of the reporters on this brand new story. Leanne, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joy.
So, Leanne, just walk us through how early do these text messages go back? Do they, in fact, go back to July?
Sure, Joy. So what we've seen, we have not seen all of the text messages. We've only seen the text messages that were outlined in this memo that Carrie Burcham wants to submit to the FBI. And this is, again, one more instance of someone who wants to talk to the FBI, but hasn't been able to. She is part of a group of friends who went to Yale undergrad with Kavanaugh and Ramirez. They're in the same group of people, and she says that she has reached out to the FBI 3 times and has not heard back. Now that the FBI says that they're going to expand this investigation, she's more hopeful that they will reach out, but as of a couple hours ago, they have not yet. So what she wants to do is she wants to present up to 51 text messages that she has between her and her friend Karen Yersovich. So Karen and Carrie, they both went to Yale with Kavanaugh, and these text messages range from July to September. And what they do show around September, when this New Yorker story was coming out, that Karen saying that Brett or Brett's guy has reached out anticipating that the Ramirez allegations would come out. And we talked to an expert on this, Brett Bauer, who was a former White House counsel in the Obama administration. He says it's just very strange that they would allow Brett to reach out on his own. He says usually when there's nominations like this, they have a team of people to do it. They say it's bad PR and that they don't recommend that the nominee itself do their own bidding. And so that's one thing that's strange. Burcham says that she wants to talk to the FBI, and she's hoping she's able to do that before that investigation closes by the end of this week.
And do we have any way of knowing whether this was Brett Kavanaugh going back through his life and saying, this might be something that happened that I need to clean up, let me have my friends reach out, or whether this was a result of him being, maybe reached out to for comment by the New Yorker and then responding to that? Is there a way of knowing sort of how he knew that this story might be coming?
Yeah, what we have, we don't know. We don't know which it is. It could be either or. And but we do know is that Ramirez and Kavanaugh, they knew each other more than what was previously reported. We did publish a photo of Kavanaugh and Ramirez from this. They were in the same wedding party in 1997, 10 years after they graduated. And Burcham said that in her text messages that when she was talking to her friend Karen, saying that it now makes a lot of sense why Ramirez was acting so strange at that wedding. She seemed like she was kind of the fish out of water, and that she was trying to stay as far away from Kavanaugh as possible. And so again, I want to bring this back to this is something that she wants to tell the FBI, and she's hoping the FBI does its due diligence and is talking to everyone that should be talked to in this scenario.
Yeah,
Joy.
Indeed. Well, Leanne Caldwell, thank you very much. Great reporting. NBC News reporter.
Great.
Really appreciate you tonight. Thank you. Enjoy.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.